Hi, we're continuing to talk about God's attributes as we are in this time of isolation and everything with coronavirus. We've talked about this week, we've talked about God's unity on Monday night. We talked about how that is on display at the cross on Tuesday night. We talked about God's love Wednesday night. And tonight we're talking about, I want to talk about God's grace and mercy. These two attributes are often spoken together. For instance, in Exodus 34, it says that the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in loving kindness. And I find that these two words are almost thought of as synonyms for Christians today. We kind of lump them together, but they ought not be. So what do they mean? What is mercy and what is grace? I like the way that I think it was Greg Laurie some years ago described it this way. He said he liked to ride motorcycles, and he said if he was riding his motorcycle and someone wrecked into it, he said justice would be that person pays for your motorcycle. Mercy would be that you go up to that person and say, you know what, forget it. Let's just go ahead and leave it as is, and we'll go our separate ways. And so in that sense, you could say you're forgiving that person, and they do not owe you anything. But grace would be as if that person wrecked your motorcycle, and you go up to them and say, you know what, let's forget about it. You don't owe me anything. As a matter of fact, I'm going to buy you a motorcycle. So mercy is forgiveness. It's the fact that you are let off the hook. But grace is this excess. It's this overflow of benevolence towards people who don't deserve it. Mercy, some people would say, is God not giving to me what I do deserve. Grace is God giving to me what I don't deserve. God giving to me the good things that I don't deserve. We tend to speak of grace as if grace is just like God forgive me. God show me grace today. God forgive me of my sins. It would be so much better if we thought about it in terms of these two things being two sides of the same coin. God show me mercy. Forgive me my sins. But then grace is God overflow your benevolent love towards me so that I'm filled with the power to live the life that you've called me to live. Dallas Willard would say that if the human being is a Boeing 747, so that grace is the fuel, the jet fuel, the supercharged jet fuel inside of that thing that gets it off the runway and gets it flying and gets it landing. He even goes so far as to say that the person who ought to be using the most grace in their life is not the one who sins the most. That person gets more mercy, maybe, but the person who is walking in obedience to the Lord, who is living the Spirit-filled life, he said that person ought to use up grace as if it were rocket fuel for a rocket engine. Like we are, a person who is walking in such a way is living the grace-filled life. That's why Paul would say that he labors more than all the other apostles, but then he'll go on to say, it's not I, but grace working in me. That's because the grace of God is that overflow, that empowering for him to do what God has called him to do. And so as we finish this up, how does making a distinction between mercy and grace instruct your mind as to what your relationship with God is like, what his relationship towards you is like? How does this instruct your prayer life as well? God bless and have a good night.